I'm Jeff Morrow in Covington, Louisiana. We're starting to feel some of the worst that Katrina has to throw at this part of the state, but it's a lot worse, I believe, as you head down toward New Orleans and points east of Slidell along Interstate 10 and into Mississippi. I'll have a live update and tell you what, we're experiencing here in just a moment.
And Jeff, we're getting battered pretty good here, not quite as bad as where you are over there near Lake Pontchartrain. This is Mike Seidel. Good morning from Mobile, where everybody is hunkered down, the power is out, and the winds continue to howl, so far up around hurricane force and gust.
Welcome back to Hurricane Central as Hurricane Katrina nears its third landfall. This is uninterrupted coverage that we begin. That means you may not see your local on the 8s, and it will be commercial free. Stay with us. We'll give you all the updates. I'm Marshall Cease.
And I'm Heather Tash. And Katrina is indeed a force to be reckoned with. Look at this roof here. It was blown off of a building in Hammond, Louisiana. If you want to look at it again, it really was absolutely amazing through here. A very powerful storm in Gulfport. You have seen sustained winds here of 94 miles per hour and gusts of 100 miles per hour coming through here.
Now, Hammond is just a few miles to the west of where Jeff Morrow is stationed in Covington, Louisiana. Here you're seeing the eye of Hurricane Katrina bear down on Biloxi, Mississippi, just a few miles south, and it continues to move to the north at about 15 miles per hour.
And amounts of heavy rain continue to work into these areas. Also, we're talking about a lot of objects now flying through the air in places like New Orleans and Gulfport. Very dangerous in these areas. If your windows are not covered, certainly you don't want to be outside.
Now, it looks like this hurricane is going to follow Interstate 59 as it heads northward, so the impact is going to be felt well to the inland areas, not only on the coast where the damage is being seen right now. Early tomorrow morning, it would be over northern Mississippi to northwestern Alabama, and in the Ohio River Valley, folks in Evansville to Cincinnati, Louisville, Kentucky, Lexington, Nashville, Tennessee need to be alert for this. Could be a lot of power outages in its path.
Now, our team of meteorologists is fanned out across the Gulf Coast to cover the arrival of Katrina. We're going to talk to storm tracker Jim Cantori in just a moment, and we also have Jeff Morrow. He is in Covington, Louisiana. Mike Seidel is in Mobile, Alabama. We're going to begin with Jeff Morrow. And Jeff, I'm not sure if you can hear me. You're just a few miles north of Lake Pontchartrain, and the winds are hitting you from the north. If the winds were from the south, would you see any flooding in your location from the lake?
I don't think this far inland. We're about 4 or 5 miles north of the lake. We were just down there, as a matter of fact. We're going to get some pictures to you as soon as we can. But I don't think we'd be in danger this far north. The only flooding here would be from all this very, very heavy rain. Now, I'm glancing around here because I'm trying to make sure that we don't have any debris flying. We also have my producer, Jim Gagne, standing by, and he's watching behind me to make sure that I'm not whacked in the head while I'm talking to you. It is a little bit more dangerous out here now. This is probably the worst that we've seen so far. A lot of very, very, very strong gusts coming through. We're on the very western edge of, I guess, what you could call the central circulation. I don't know that we're quite in the western eye wall, but we're in some pretty bad stuff here on the northwest side. We've seen a lot of tree damage around the area. There's some smaller trees right where we are here in this parking lot that are down, but much bigger trees have come down. Obviously, the
Yeah. Hey, this is Mike Seidel, Mobile, Alabama. Obviously, the weather is going down here where Jeff is, and it's going down here. Right now, we've got gusts up over 50 miles an hour. Peak gust is up around 70 miles an hour, which is just below hurricane force. A lot of rain so far, about 2.5 inches. We're expecting 5 inches. Not nearly the amount of rain they had over in South Florida because the storm is moving proportional to how fast the storm is moving. As far as debris goes around here, fortunately, we don't have a lot of trees where I am. I want to get whacked. We had one transformer over there blow about an hour ago. Just one little wire popped off, and it sounded like an explosion. And it doesn't take much. Our power has been out for about 45 minutes, and we continue to get these rain bands. One thing we haven't seen for about an hour and a half are any tornado warnings. We had 3 or 4 earlier for Baldwin and here in Mobile counties. Since then, we've been lucky. No reports of any touchdowns, but again, these elevation in them, especially the outer bands, and it can spin up a tornado at any moment. It certainly is a slows down. So we're just dealing with the wind and the rain here. Everybody at the hotels are just hanging out. There are a lot of these people coming in from New Orleans, from Louisiana, Mississippi, getting what they thought maybe was far enough away from the storm. Of course, not as bad here as it is points west over towards Pascagoula and over towards New Orleans. Heather and Marshall will be here all day. We're always open, buddy.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mike, and stay safe out there. And obviously, you can see we're having a lot of breakups starting to occur in our live reports here because of the conditions which are going downhill. And
there'll probably be more of that throughout the morning as you stay with us. Now, we just had a report from a stringer in New Orleans, one that we use. He says some windows are blown out in the higher levels of the Sheraton Hotel. We have another unconfirmed report of the Hyatt Hotel having the same problem, and that's near the Superdome.
And our guests there are just huddling in the hallways because of this. And also, speaking of the Superdome, we do have reports too that part of the roof has peeled back. Of course, this is a shelter. There are about 10,000 people located here. We also have a report of a leak too in the Superdome. New Orleans is getting hit very hard. A lot of objects flying through the air here, including things like siding. And we've also been talking about lampposts which are blown over in the area. Unfortunate for some of the people that decided not to evacuate and are trying to just hold on during the storm.
They're on they're on generators right now at the Superdome. No air conditioning, but they do have electricity. Now, I want to go to Gulfport, Mississippi, where Jim Cantori filed this report just a short time ago.
Hey, good morning, everybody, from Gulfport, Mississippi, where it just continues to get worse here. We've lost power from time to time. The generator kicks on. Every once in a while, the streetlights will come back on as we have power come back. So it's just teetering right now, but winds continue to get stronger. And you know what else is a danger? Check this out. We were just standing here, setting up our shot. All of a sudden, we hear this big kaboom. And I walk over, and here's this piece of plywood that's basically imploded around these barriers. Just sat there. Boom. That's why it's dangerous to be outside. Not to mention, look at all the trees out here. We have a ton of trees. There's leaves and branches flying around everywhere. And as those winds pick up, we are going to have to kind of back in toward the building a little bit better. And, you know, it's amazing because we think about this. We stand out here. We think, all right, let's see. We're protected on this side of the building. We should be okay from flying debris. And sure enough, you know, things like this happen. So that was a little bit too close for comfort. I want to take you down toward Highway 90 now, show you some pictures that we've just gotten in, and you can see how high the water has gotten already. We're talking about 10 to 12 feet above sea level. So it's really gotten up, and it continues to rise very, very rapidly. That's the Highway 90 area. There's an access road above that, which will eventually become impassable as well. We are expecting the surge to get very, very close to this area here at the Armed Forces Retirement Home. But the good news is we are high enough that we will be out of that surge plane. That is why we're here right now. So all in all, guys, it continues going downhill in a hurry. We'll keep you posted as long as we can. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Jim. And of course, the conditions are going downhill in a lot of locations very quickly here as we continue to see that this system now is pushing on shore here. We've been talking a lot about New Orleans, some of the damage going on there. There's also been a levee, too, that has had some problems here, a breach there, and that's along the Industrial Canal at Tennessee Street. And we continue to see some very strong winds.
135-mile-per-hour winds at the latest advisory are around the circulation of this 25-mile wide eye wall. It's moving north at 15 miles per hour, Katrina is. Its barometric pressure, 923 millibars, and that places it about 40 miles southeast of New Orleans. This was the 9 o'clock advisory just about 40 minutes ago, so it's probably about 8 miles closer, or 32 miles, but there's been damage already, and one of the shelters in Chalmette at a high school there. We also have an unconfirmed report. That's where the western eye wall had moved in about a half an hour ago, that there has been some damage to the roof of that building.
And also, we have some new tornado warnings coming in here for catastrophic winds. This is in the New Orleans area. Places like Jefferson Parish coming in here, Orleans Parish, also St. Bernard and St. Charles.
And also Lafourche Parish, and also for Plaquemine Parish. This will go on for some time. Conditions worsening to the north and east of this system. We've also had a structural failure that has been indicated in New Orleans.
Well, in fact, many reports are coming in stating some total total structural failure coming in the New Orleans metro area. You know, this area here, too, is a region that relies on a system of earthen levees here, too. Seawalls, water pumps, and luck, really, to protect this area from hurricanes. But keep in mind, too, that the flood control system is designed to handle a Category 3 storm. But, again, Katrina is a Category 4 hurricane here, and it's packing quite a punch to the New Orleans area right now.
And we have another report, too. St. Bernard High may be suffering some major damage as well. That is another area that has been a shelter, and so far about 350,000 people. This is at last report, unconfirmed, without power in the region.
We want to take you now to Florida. We're going to take you to Fort Walton Beach. That's where Stephanie Abrams is standing by. Not getting hit as hard here, Stephanie, but what are you seeing?
Well, we're getting sandblasted here. I'm alongside the general manager of this Holiday Inn we're staying at here, and I want to know, Stephen, what's the biggest concern right now for you guys?
I think us maintaining power for our guests and being able to, you know, that's a comfort when you've got power and lights. If we can have power, they'll be fine. Other than that, the hotel is very secure. We've done a lot of things to protect ourselves since Ivan.
And what kind of guests do you have staying here? You're booked. You're packed here. How did that happen? How'd you stay open?
Well, we just made the decision. Our owner made the decision to stay open to give a lot of the displaced visitors coming to the area. We knew they were going to need places to stay, so we decided we discounted our rates down and decided to just provide them a place, a shelter, because it's tough out there. We've been through this in the Panhandle several times, and a lot of our employees and things have had to evacuate, so we felt we'd just be able to try to give them a nice, safe place.
All right, let's talk about these dunes, Stephen. Let's head over here now. Tell me a little bit about the sea oats and why you planted these and how high they are.
Well, this is a restoration project. We learned from Ivan. At that time, our beaches were flat, and of course that caused a tremendous water surge problem from Ivan. So our owner, we kind of all thought that he was kind of, you know, not really there when he put all this in. But believe it or not, he was right on the money. He put in these dunes. It was quite an expense. He did the restoration with all of the sea oats and everything. And as you can see, Dennis was a proven fact to show that it helped our hotel. We had absolutely no damage from the Dennis, and we lost half of this dune with Dennis. This one seems to be holding very well for us right now. So it was a great plan, and I commend him for that.
And in Ivan, what happened? Were the dunes, I mean, everything washed in your hotel room? What happened during Ivan?
Well, there wasn't actually a dune here. The beach was actually flat. So as the waves came in, they just brought all the beach, all the sand and everything just came right in. And if you were to look at the hotel out here, where the pools, all of that were, it was just covered with sand. You didn't even see pools and walls or anything. All
right, well, speaking of sand, we have 30-mile-per-hour sustained winds. I know you're getting sandblasted, so head back inside. Thank you so much, and thank you for being so kind.
Thank you.
Leaving this hotel open for everybody.
Thanks.
We will. All right, I also wanted to let everybody know that we do have a tornado warning here in Okaloosa County, and that is until 9:30 local time, 9:30 Central. We have to worry about that, of course, as we have all that high wind coming in over the ocean, and then the winds hit the ground with the friction. You get that spinning in the atmosphere, so we do have to worry about that. Right now, our winds are moving from the southeast, and again, we are seeing them sustained around 30 miles per hour, gusting to tropical storm force. And that tropical storm force wind threshold goes from 39 to 74. So we're gusting about 45 miles per hour. So just imagine what the folks are dealing with that are going through the eye of this storm, because these, you know, I mean, we're blowing around here and that sand's picking up, and you can see that Gulf of Mexico still crashing into the dunes. And actually, where they don't have the dunes, all of this water's already washing over the roads. We do have some road closures, as a matter of fact, on 98. So we're going to stick around here, Heather and Marshall. We are safe, and we will continue to bring live shots to you as long as we can.
Okay, stay safe, Stephanie.
Yeah, you bet. I do want to make a mention, because she was talking with the general manager of that Holiday Inn, that the Attorney General from Louisiana says he will prosecute gougers. And he's had over 24 complaints so far, and I'm sure other states will do the same. And that man at the Holiday Inn lowered the rates to help accommodate people.
Yeah, that's
Just
nice
terrific.
to hear. Well, driving wind and rain is being whipped into Covington, Louisiana, thanks to Hurricane Katrina. Some traffic signals have been knocked down, and a number of trees are down as well. and things are likely to get even worse.
And our Jeff Morrow is braving the storm from Covington, and we'll be checking in with him just a little later this morning. But first off, we're going to check in with Dr. Steve Lyons, our hurricane expert.
And Steve, you know, a lot of concerns out there. We've been hearing about some significant damage taking place in some areas. What right now is the biggest danger?
Well, the wind threat right this second is a very big threat in New Orleans, where we're seeing some structure failures, trees falling down, roofs blown off, windows on high-rises blown in. So you need to take shelter immediately into the stairwells of those high-rises and get into a level that's not right at the sea level where it could be flooded, but fairly low level. Now here's the circulation. It's moving to the east of New Orleans, but the western eye wall is clipping the portions of New Orleans, primarily the eastern portions. We've had some type of levee compromise. We're not sure how much water is getting into the city, if it's flowing into the city or not, but one of the levee systems has failed a little bit. So we're concerned about that. Now, in the meantime, this is all consistent with a Category 4 hurricane. The wind damage can be near catastrophic, but at least extreme. On the other hand, on the east side of the circulation, where the wind is coming onshore very soon, the strongest winds are going to be coming onshore near Pass Christian, Wave Land, and Biloxi Gulfport in Mississippi. And there we've had some winds coming out of the east, piling water up there for hours, and now that water is going to be pushed onshore by these southerly winds that are going to be coming onshore. So not only are we going to have some significant wind damage there very soon, if it's not already occurring, we're also going to see some significant water rises along the coast there with a major surge. Now, the highest surge we've ever seen from a hurricane, ever recorded from a hurricane in North America, has been in Pass Christian, Mississippi. And that's about where we're going to see probably the highest surge again. Here's the circulation center moving. There's New Orleans there, and you can see Slidell, just to the northeast of New Orleans, is now in the northwestern eye wall. You are getting some very strong winds there. Take shelter immediately as the system continues to move to the north, maybe slightly east of due north. Now here's the bad part right over here. The eastern eye wall coming onshore in Mississippi. Pass Christian is about right there, and we expect the surge to be extremely high there. Right now our estimates are between 16 and 22 feet for the surge there. We don't know where that compromise of the levee system occurred, whether it was around the lake here or somewhere farther over, but there could be some water in New Orleans area as well. So this is a very treacherous situation. This is going to be the worst situation water-wise in the next couple of hours. In the meantime, the wind in the very high populated city area is going to be a significant problem for at least the next 2 hours until that eye wall goes to the north. Then Slidell is going to get the worst of it, and then it'll go inland and begin to weaken. But it takes a long time for a Category 4 to weaken. We can expect tropical storm winds to extend inland into Mississippi at least 200 miles, 250 miles over the next 12 to 24 hours, and that means power outages will be extending inland as well. Now the winds are quite a bit lower as you go off to the east from the circulation, but the wave heights are very high out in here, so that's the problem we're having out there. But in the meantime, right in here, this is the greatest threat for the potential for loss of life away from the coast is building compromises in the greater New Orleans area and in the Gulfport, Biloxi, Pass Christian area in the next hour or two, including Slidell, which is just north of New Orleans. After that, we've got the surge problem, and the surge problem, if anybody's near the coastline, could be extreme right along the coast. In the meantime, the wave action is huge along here. Stay out of the coastal zone. Beach erosion has been tremendous. We've had some longshore currents pulling toward the west, scouring the beach. We've had some dunes rebuilt on there, and that's protected a lot of the beach area. But a lot of the sand has been gone from Destin yesterday, and now some of the highest wave action is over here in Alabama. And that will drop away as the system moves inland, but it's still going to remain at least 15 to 20 feet for the next 6 to 12 hours. So it's a very treacherous situation, wave-wise here, wind-wise in the greater New Orleans area, moving into the Pass Christian, Mobile, Biloxi area, high surge in Mississippi, and then the wave action, as I just mentioned. Back to you in the studio.
Now reports are coming in, too, on damage assessments. Again, a levee breach has occurred, and this is in the Industrial Canal at Tennessee Street in New Orleans. 3 to 8 feet of water is expected due to this breach under a flash flood warning until at least 2:15 this afternoon, Central Daylight Time.
And we also have many reports that are coming in stating total structural failure, too, coming in the New Orleans metro area, and this is coming in from the National Weather Service. We also have some catastrophic wind damage ongoing in imminent in parts of Louisiana and Mississippi, including areas here in Harrison and Hancock counties. And also we're seeing some of that too, working in just in the far southeastern end of Louisiana.
Now, north of New Orleans is Covington, Louisiana, which is east of Hammond. And this is Jeff Morrow live. Jeff, how are conditions now?
Oh, they're bad, Marshall. This is the worst we've seen so far. Right before you came to me, we had a gust here that was probably up over hurricane force easily. Haven't seen any other trees come down, but we're keeping a close watch on it for you. Again, we are probably getting into the worst. I would say in the next hour, hour and a half, this is going to be the worst. So anybody around here where we are in the Hammond area or where we are in Covington, even on down toward the northern shore of Lake Pontchartrain, this is it. This is going to be the worst of it here, so don't go out on the roadways. There's definitely a lot of debris flying in the air right now, and also a lot of trees down. We'll have some pictures of that for you coming up here in just a bit. In fact, we can go ahead and show that to you. Again, we were out and about just within the last hour shooting some of this. Again, some very heavy rain, some localized flooding, not from the lake, not from Lake Pontchartrain, but from the heavy, heavy rain that continues to pelt down here and pretty much go sideways. I think we're in a pretty good position. We should be able to continue to broadcast unless it rains so hard that we can't get the signal out. But so far, so good. Again, power has been out here for quite some time. As you guys have been reporting, and we're hearing as well, it's a lot different down in New Orleans. We're kind of feeling a little bit better about our decision definitely to evacuate there yesterday because conditions down there seem to be really, really bad. Now we're getting another pretty good gust of wind coming by with a lot of rain coming through the area once again. Again, a little bit hard to hear and a little bit hard to talk when you have this much water in the air and kind of hitting the side of my hood here. So if you ask me a question and I don't respond right away, you'll know why, because it's kind of a roaring sound going by at the present time. But again, this is about it. This is the worst of it. Here in the next hour to hour and a half, we're going to have hurricane force winds at times, and then hopefully things will finally start to quiet down. Heather and Marshall, let's get back to you.
All right, thank you, Jeff. And you know what's interesting too, when you see Jeff being blown around there and how strong the winds are now, there actually was a structural fire earlier there. We have reports of in Covington.
Electrical fire, yeah.
And they were not able to put this out or even go to it because of the strong winds.
This is video from Hammond, Louisiana, which is just west of where you just saw Jeff Morrow undergoing damage throughout the area. There are power outages all over New Orleans, at least 350,000 people without power because of these winds, still at 135 miles per hour around the center of circulation.
We can give you the position here too. The new position is about 30 miles east-southeast of New Orleans, Louisiana, and it's about 50 miles west-southwest of Biloxi, Mississippi. This is the center of Hurricane Katrina.
Now, there are also tornado warnings throughout the region. I want to update you on some of those, and then we'll show you where that tornado threat will be today. Pearl River County in southern Mississippi is now under a tornado warning. That includes Poplarville and Picayune. That till 9:45. George County and Mobile County in Alabama, and George County in southeast Mississippi under tornado warnings, and tornado warnings again for Santa Rosa County in northwest Florida and Okaloosa County. And these storms are moving to the northwest, get this, at 70 miles per hour, not even in the eye of the hurricane.
And we want to go now to Jim Cantori. He's in Gulfport, Mississippi, and find out the latest. Jim?
Okay, guys, here's the deal in Gulfport. As we mentioned, we were at 27 feet above sea level. Guess what? That's not high enough, because what happened is the surge came in, backed up the canals, and right now we have cars that we're looking at out in the parking lot that are completely underwater right now. I can't tell which is the ground, which is where the asphalt is as the water continues to slowly rise. Our winds are shifting a little bit out of the northwest, so hopefully the worst of it is over. But, you know, just like we talked about, it comes in so quick. Literally within 20 minutes, we went from a dry parking lot, or if you will, a non-flooded one, to a parking lot now which is at least 3 to 4 feet underwater as we speak. We are all safe. The crew is inside. The vehicles, that's another issue. The truck, though, the satellite truck, we did get moved to higher ground just in time before the worst of this came in. So this is something I've never seen, the kind of water that's come up in through here. And you got to imagine, if we're at 27 feet, everything along US 90, and certainly some of the homes, even on the access road, are starting to flood right now as well. So incredible amount of water coming in with this. Winds have been gusting 120 miles an hour in some cases. Just a howling, screeching wind. Almost makes your ears pop a little bit. But the site here is basically, we are part of the Gulf of Mexico right now. All the mobiles in the parking lot are sitting underwater, some up to the windows, some over the top, depending obviously on how deep they are. There are some power poles down. There are trees down. There are tree limbs down all over the place floating around. There's even some diesel fuel floating in some of the water here. And even huge dumpsters that you couldn't even think about moving as a human being are just floating around like little rubber duckies in the bathtub. So that's the site for you here, guys. We've had to shut down the generators here as a result of the water getting even too high to the generators. So we've saved the electrical panels there for now. Hopefully the water won't get much higher. You guys got anything to tell me? I'd love to hear it. Good news, please.
Just very sad news coming in from you, because you think if you're 27 feet here above sea level, and as you mentioned, you know, all the places that are lower than that, and there the water's 3 to 4 feet high.
And what you need to know too is all of our people that go on live reports, we try to keep out of harm's way, and at 27 feet sea level they thought they would be above harm's way, and indeed it looks like they will be, but boy, that's right on the edge.
Yeah, and it really causes great concern for all the people that tried to kind of wait it out, and they thought they would be okay, and very concerned about some folks there in Gulfport, Mississippi, and New Orleans.
New Orleans, yes, you bet.
We're going to turn now to Mobile, and Mike Seidel is there. Mike, we've been hearing about some pretty devastating conditions in some locales. What are you seeing right now in the Mobile area?
Well, the power is out everywhere. We've got a crew going down towards Dolphin Island and towards the coast to bring back some pictures for you momentarily to get an idea of what is going down over there, because we're about 20 to 25 miles inland from the Gulf, and we're about 5 or 6 a perfectly safe area as far as flooding issue goes. The only concern here is debris and these gusty winds, which at times are gusting up just over hurricane force, and the driving rainfall. We haven't had a tornado warning lately. That's a good thing. We had several earlier this morning, and you get a sense of the wind whipping these trees. We had one power transformer blow about 2 hours ago, and that was scary enough. It was as loud as a firecracker, and it sounded like something exploded. But I expect we'll see more of these flashes. I keep an eye across the street, across I-65. Look at it. There is not a car on the highway this morning, and that's the way it should be. Think about it. It's Monday, rush hour, people going into work, not a car out there. It's deserted. And I keep an eye across all these big signs, these road signs. And so far, they're hanging in here. The hotel sign here at the Hampton is doing okay. So we've done okay so far. But again, we're just in this little area here. We don't know exactly what's going on around us. But I can assure you, as the winds continue to pick up, with gusts probably approaching 100 miles an hour, we're going to have more, certainly more damage. But nothing like they're going to see, or they're seeing over around Pascagoula and over towards New Orleans.
I'll stay with the Weather Channel as Hurricane Central and our coverage continues. Hurricane Katrina, one landfall at 6:10 Central Daylight Time, actually the second one for Katrina, about ready to make a third near Biloxi.
And of course, you remember the first landfall was in South Florida last week. You can see the hurricane now working on here. We do have some positive news. We've been talking a lot about some of the devastation, but the Superdome damage that we've been hearing about in New Orleans, that is considered minor damage. We've heard some reports of some of the roof was peeled off and also some leaking taking place. That, of course, is a shelter to about 10,000 people.
All right, the center of circulation at this advisory as of 8 o'clock Central Daylight Time placed the center of circulation of 40 miles southeast of New Orleans with 135 mile per hour winds and barometric pressure at 923. As we head to the travel desk now with Nicole Mitchell, she has an update on that.
And Nicole, what's the latest information that you have?
Oh, well, we've been talking about the hurricane hunters this morning, and my colleagues there, their last report, 925 millibars, which is only a slight weakening. Right. Usually they'll quit the flights when this goes over land, but because how Louisiana is, it headed back over water briefly, so they've been monitoring it. People always ask us how bumpy these flights are when it is going over land. That's when it really starts to get a little bit more so, is that friction with the storm hitting the land. So I anticipate they'll have some stories to tell. But as we head out to the airports and some of the other travel that people are trying to maybe do this morning, here are the problem spots. Well, we've got New Orleans, Gulfport, Baton Rouge, and Fort Walton, Mobile, and Pensacola all closed. Good news in Philadelphia, you're not having delays anymore. You'd had some earlier in the day. Places to continue watching. Into the northwest, Seattle, you'll see some showers today. Pittsburgh, the northern edge of Katrina, you can get some of those bands. Thunderstorms mean delays possible. And from Montgomery and other parts of Alabama, heavy rain, storms, wind, delays are very likely for you. So we're going to continue to see problems across the board, all through the south. The stretch of Interstate 10 today, I've been keeping an eye on some of those observations all the way into parts of Florida. You're going to continue to see those even tropical storm force winds in many places. So I really don't recommend on 10 or even on parts of Highway 90, completely flooded in some spots. So don't do any of that travel if you don't absolutely need to today. In fact, a lot of places you just can't. And then this spreads out farther to the north. So let's say you're traveling on Interstate 20, Interstate 40, even as far north, maybe even as Interstate 70. You're going to get some of these bands. The moisture is going to be increasing up this direction as that continues to move inland. So we could be talking flooding problems all the way up through the Ohio River Valley as this storm continues to make its track inland. Not all of this today, but really a storm to watch over the next couple days with any travel that you might be doing. Finally, want to mention there have been some showers off the northeast, a lot of that continuing to move off, but watch for that possibility for today in parts of Interstate 95. And then, as I mentioned, tomorrow, with all this moving inland, the flooding problems are certainly going to be a problem. Heather and Marshall, back to you.
I also want to say that City of Houston has indicated that anyone with a Louisiana license plate will have free parking anywhere in Houston today. So if you're watching and you did evacuate and you don't know where to go, head to a parking lot in Houston.
Well, you know, I tell you, that's one state trying to be a neighbor to another, one city trying to be a neighbor.
And North Carolina opened up shelters yesterday for folks that were going to evacuate the situation.
Yeah, and you know, conditions are really getting bad in a lot of these areas. One of those places where it has gotten very bad is in Covington, Louisiana. That's where Jeff Morrow has been standing by, and he's had to kind of break down for a while because the conditions are just getting too bad to report out of there. But he did file this report here just a few minutes ago.
This is probably the worst that Hurricane Katrina has thrown our way in Louisiana, at least in the Covington, Louisiana area. We are well north of New Orleans. We are definitely on the western side of this hurricane, the northwest side. This is generally known as the weaker side, but boy, I'll tell you, you couldn't tell it looking into some of this wind. Gusts definitely probably up almost to hurricane force right now. At times it's a little bit difficult to stand. Just wind-driven sheets of rain blowing sideways, a lot of trees bending over, and a lot of them have come down. Power's been out since early this morning around this area, and with this much rain coming down, I'm sure we'll have some localized flooding. Now, we're not close enough to the lake, and the wind is actually blowing in the opposite direction from Lake Pontchartrain for us to see any problems here, but it could be much different down toward the New Orleans area. Again, we don't know whether these winds are going to be strong enough for Pontchartrain to breach the levee system down there, but nonetheless, we're getting reports from New Orleans that there is some structural damage there. Some light posts at the very least have come down. Some windows have been blown out of some of the high rises, and the Superdome evidently has sprung some leaks there as well. So some structural problems down in Louisiana, some structural damage as the winds there even a little bit stronger. Quickly, I'll walk over here and just show you some of the wind blowing the rain sideways down behind me. Again, we expect to see this for a bit longer until the eye of Katrina passes us by to the east, and then hopefully as we pass the noon hour, things will start to quiet down. I'm Jeff Morrow reporting from Covington, Louisiana.
And that's what a lot of people are hoping for, that things will start to quiet down, but we still have a lot to get through.
Indeed we do. We indicated a little while ago of a levee breach in New Orleans. We want to pinpoint that for you as you look at the city of New Orleans here. And this levee breach occurred on the Industrial Canal at Tennessee Street, where 3 to 8 feet of water is expected in the breach. Notice where the French Quarter is. Notice where the levee breach is. This is not limited to Araby and the 9th Ward of New Orleans. It could extend out further.
Now, we just had a report from Jeff Morrow. We told you how to break down because of the conditions there, but we have him back now, and we want to take you quickly here live to Jeff Morrow in Covington, Louisiana.
I lost IFB.
Nope, he's having trouble hearing us. Let's see if we can You know, we're going to get back to Jeff, but first we're going to go to Stephanie Abrams, and she's in Fort Walton Beach.
She is, where she's seeing some wave heights there that continue to increase, as do the water levels. Highway 98 impassable in many locations. Stephanie, what's the latest?
Well, right now we've just been getting blasted by the sand, basically, and also the Gulf of Mexico, and it's really picked up in intensity, I must say, within the last hour or so. And actually our winds have picked up as well. We have seen them sustain around 34, 35 miles per hour out of Destin. That's where we can get the observation from, and that's just a few miles east of us. And we have seen a wind gust up to 52 miles per hour. That is tropical storm force wind gusts here, so you can only imagine what Jeff and Jim and Mike Seidel and then the residents and visitors to that area are feeling right now. This is what it looks like when you have tropical storm force gusts. Just tropical storm. This thing was a Category 4 hurricane when it made landfall. So maybe you can try to put this in a little bit of perspective, how the winds are just exponentially greater where they are located, and of course that rain as well. We haven't really had to deal with the rain, Heather and Marshall.
All right, Stephanie, and hopefully you won't have to deal with a lot more.
Now, Governor Jeb Bush is having a news conference right now. We want to listen into this.
To once again ask everyone to follow the instructions on the use of generators. Those two deaths that occurred because a generator was being used inside of one's home. It is not appropriate to use generators, just as it wouldn't make sense to drive your car into your house and keep the car turned on. It doesn't make any sense to use a generator inside as well. There have been 33 confirmed carbon monoxide poisoning events as of last night, and with the increased use of generators, it's important for people to follow those rules. Florida Power and Light is working quickly to ensure all customers have their power restored as soon as possible. As of 7 a.m. this morning, less than 1% of the residents of Monroe County were without power. 11%, which is just slightly over 100,000 customers in Broward County are still without power, and in Dade County 22%, or 212,000 customers are without power, and we are beginning to see power outages, of course, in Northwest Florida. As it relates to fuel, we are working very closely with the United States Department of Energy and the petroleum industry to ensure we maintain fuel supplies and shipments into our ports. We continue to experience localized fuel shortages, and I would ask that people be patient to make sure that they take care of their own needs, but also recognize that their neighbors need gasoline as well. Fuel supply is no longer just an issue for Floridians, by the way. This will be a regional and perhaps national issue for the short run as we assess, as the damage to the refineries is assessed. If there is damage, it could create significant problems. In the interim, we are going to do what we can, working with our partners in the federal government and with these oil companies to make sure that Floridians do have access to gasoline, that the alternative supplies of fuel from other sources than just in the Gulf are contracted so that we can make sure that we continue to get gasoline into our ports. With that, I would like to ask Craig Fugate to talk a little bit about the specific relief and recovery efforts that are underway.
Thank you, Governor Bush. Now that we've been declared by President Bush as a major disaster area, FEMA and the state are in a unified command and response to the impacts of Katrina to Florida.
We've been listening to Governor Jeb Bush on a state of South Florida on Katrina's first landfall, and also talking a bit about the conditions in the northwestern part of his state right now.
And, you know, we have seen impressive damage already throughout the Gulf Coast. It didn't take long for Highway 98 in Fort Walton, Florida to wash out. Right now, Highway 98 between Okaloosa Island and Destin is closed because of flooding.
Now in Mobile, the winds are picking up and have already caused damage on highways and city streets. Power lines are down and several buildings have been damaged.
And in Covington, Louisiana, roads are flooded, and along the coast, waves are kicking up, making it dangerous to venture out. here's some of the damage that we've seen coming in from the Covington area. Meteorologist Jeff Morrow and crews sent these pictures in just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, another person getting lashed right now by some strong winds and some heavy rain, too. And all morning long, actually, is Mike Seidel in Mobile, Alabama.
And we're going to turn it over to you now, Mike.
Hello, 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 hello.
Hello.
Testing out his microphone.
Okay.
Mike, what's going on there?
Hey, Heather and Marshall, we're down here in Mobile. We're back out here on the frontage road looking down I-85, or rather I-65, and you can see the power of the wind blowing the water across the highway, across that Ford dealership. You can hear the howling of the wind here. So far, these signs have held up pretty good. This Family Inn sign has held up. We'll swing around right now and show you the flag. And this is looking back towards Mobile. By the way, we just heard that there's an moorings over there in Mobile Bay by the Cochrane Bridge. And right now, they've got 3 tugboats out there trying to wrestle with a big oil tanker at this point with these wind gusts over hurricane force.
That's Mobile, Alabama, reporting live, Mike Seidel. We have other reports coming in now from New Orleans, Louisiana, which is getting the brunt of the western eye wall or very near to it.
Well, you know, significant and life-threatening storm surge here of 18 to 22 feet above normal is occurring, and the levees here have actually been overtopped in Orleans and also St. Bernard parishes. Of course, Orleans, that is the county where New Orleans is located. So this is going to lead to some very catastrophic damage coming into the area. We've already heard reports of, unconfirmed, but reports of buildings that have collapsed there, as well as a lot of damage due to some windows that have been blown out, objects flying through the air in New Orleans, such as siding, and also lampposts that have been blown over.
And the southwest part of Lake Pontchartrain has been affected now. The east banks of Jefferson, St. Charles, St. John the Baptist, and Livingston parishes. Serious situation from New Orleans to Biloxi and Gulfport, Mobile, and north of that region with this landfalling hurricane Katrina, still to make its 3rd landfall imminently.
And you know, while we talk about New Orleans and Gulfport and some of these areas that are getting hit very hard right now, there are also a lot of other problems coming out. You know, New Orleans, one of the problems we're seeing too is a Superdome. Now, we've heard reports that this is minor, but the roof was peeled back a little bit there. Also, that they are using generators there, but the air conditioning doesn't work.
Air conditioning doesn't work. Generators can't support it, but it can support electricity. Now, with that breach, there was a little bit of a water leak earlier, and they moved the people from where that leak was. There's about 9,000 to 10,000 people in the Superdome. There have been no injuries, and everything is just fine. Want those of you to know that know someone that has gone to seek safe shelter at the Superdome.
Yeah, keep in mind here with New Orleans, I mean, what's so problematic in the New Orleans area here too is that it is located under sea level, and with that, you know, it relies on a system of earthen levees, seawalls, water pumps, and really luck to protect itself from hurricanes. But you know, that flood control system is designed to handle a Category 3 storm, and of course this is a Category 4 hurricane, and as we've been saying, we are now seeing some breaches there in the levees taking place. Some people, certainly many people, have evacuated the area, but there are 485,000 people that live in New Orleans, and even if they've evacuated, they may come home to a very damaging situation.
One of those situations that will be damaging for many is in Gulfport, Mississippi. That's where Jim Cantori is. We're going to go to him now.
Just incredible, you know, if you will, first-hand experience with storm surge and how that water can come in and how quickly it can back up. I mean, our water is still coming up now, starting to enter the first floor. We tried to barricade the doors as best as we can. The generators have been shut down. Everybody's holding out, though. All the Armed Forces retirement folks are doing pretty good here. They know what's going on outside and how powerful it is, but there's a lot of course, officers that are here, and we're trying to just kind of barricade any water and keep it out as quick as we can. But, you know, it's just an amazing sight. When you look out at the parking lot, you see cars floating around. We see dumpsters floating around at will, and winds howling at 120 miles an hour. It's just absolutely unbelievable. A lot of tree limbs down, a lot of trees pretty much stripped of their leaves, the ones that haven't come down. And so imagine what a tree looks like fully leafed out, and then imagine what a tree looks like when it's fully defoliated in the fall. And that's the kind of I'm standing here right now. I'm going to have to back up because the water just keeps coming in on this first floor here. So, guys, what am I going to tell you? A lesson in storm surge. We're safe. We're safe.
All right. right, and here, of course, we are talking to Jim Cantore and breaking up there. And keep in mind, too, that Jim Cantore went to a place thinking it'd be very safe. It was 27 feet above sea level here, where he's located at a retirement center. And still, he said that the parking lot is flooded. We have water coming into the building right now. And, you know, I have a lot of concern because I know somebody personally who decided to stay behind despite my telling her to get out of the New Orleans area. And I know many of you know people, too, that tried to ride out the storm. And it's very scary when you hear some of the information that is coming in.
Indeed it is. Let's check in with Dr. Steve Lyon. Steve, when is the worst going to be over?
Well, it's happening right now, that's for sure, and it's going to be over probably in about 2 or 3 hours. Circulation is starting to make a second landfall here, at least relative to the New Orleans area, right on the coast of Louisiana and Mississippi here. It's going to go in and it's moving straight north. The western eye wall is over basically portions of New Orleans, and now some of the strongest winds are coming out of the north across Lake Pontchartrain. And if there's some levee breaks there, we're very concerned how much water is getting into the city, because it's going to take a long time to pump that water out if it does get in. And if the water's in there, people can't get in if they're already out of there. And if they're in there, they're going to be in trouble if they're not in higher ground. Now, the circulation is moving here on shore. That means the south winds are coming on shore here. The highest wave action is occurring now along the Alabama-Florida coastline, about 25 to 35 feet, maybe a little higher in some specific locations. And now the right front quadrant is also coming on shore in Mississippi, which makes the surge along that area some of the highest of all. Now, here's the latest visible satellite image. You can see the circulation area very close to New Orleans, but just to the east, but that doesn't matter. The eye wall has caused a lot of damage there, and there's a lot of flooding in the city. Now, let's look at the radar image for a second. First of all, you can see the eye wall here. Look at Slidell. They're in the northern portion of the eye wall now. They may have actually gotten stronger winds than New Orleans did. We'll have to wait and see. But as the system moves inland, it's going to start to weaken. But it's going to take a while because it's a very strong hurricane, and it'll take it a long time before it weakens below the level where it cannot do any more damage. Here's the big patch of the right front quadrant moving into the Biloxi, Gulfport, past Christian area, Waveland area that's produced that large surge. Exactly how large, we're not sure. We're thinking somewhere around the 22 to 24 foot range, but as you heard from Jim Cantore, it could have been higher, maybe 27 feet. A little surprising based on the strength of this, considering a Cat 5 and 69 produced 24 feet. But wait and see. The bad news is it's bad enough that there's a lot of flooding there as well. Now let's look over here. Here's Lake Pontchartrain here. New Orleans sits to the south of it, and now the winds are coming very quickly out of the north, right to the east side, to the west side of the eye wall. And so now the strongest push of water from Lake Pontchartrain toward New Orleans is occurring. So if there are any breaks in the levee system, or if that water tops that levee system, water could be filling up New Orleans right now. We don't know whether it is or not, but the worst case scenario is occurring right now. Once the system moves in a little bit, it'll begin to weaken. The winds will turn to the west across New Orleans. That'll direct the water from Lake Pontchartrain toward the east, which is basically from whence it came back out toward the ocean. But that's going to take a long time to settle down. In a lot of the areas that have high water, that water won't drain out for days. It'll take a number of days to drain out. So the circulation here, moving onshore, the wind is improving down here in southern Louisiana. That's the good news. But it's going to continue to increase as we go northward into Mississippi. And this is direct structural damage potential. The greatest, obviously, has been here near Landfall. But it's going to continue inland as the system's moving about 15 miles per hour. We can expect hurricane-force winds to extend inland as far as about 150 to 200 miles. That's a long way, and that's at least a level where significant structural damage could occur. Heather, Marshall.
All right, thank you, Steve.
We're going to take you to Covington, Louisiana now, which is north of Lake Pontchartrain. We have some fresh video in from here. In Covington is where Jeff Morrow is stationed. He's been reporting this morning. As you can see here, a tree down on the roof of a house. It has been uprooted. Heavy rain has been falling. Winds have gusted to near 100 miles per hour. And Mike Seidel is in Mobile, Alabama.
We're going to be taking you first to looking at some of the conditions that we've been seeing with this hurricane. Remember, Katrina swept across southern Florida last week as a Cat 1 hurricane, and this also killed 9 people here. The first landfall was near Miami. It had winds of 80 miles per hour. That was on August 25th.
Then it began trekking across the Gulf and its second landfall was this morning at 6:10 Central Daylight Time. Winds at 140 miles per hour at Burris, Louisiana. That's very near to Grand Isle, Louisiana. And its third landfall is imminent.
We're going to take you now to Mobile, Alabama, and that's where Mike Seidel is standing by live. Mike, what's the latest here?
Hey, good morning, Heather and Marshall. It is about as bad as it's been all morning. Skies are getting dark again. I think we got another squall coming in. Take a look. We're looking at the Old Glory, and look at the wind whipping that flag now. These gusts are up around 60 miles an hour, 60 to 65 miles an hour. You got and the rain blowing right into you. Fortunately, we're not seeing any major structural damage, at least on this section of Interstate 65. We're just off Airport Boulevard and just a few miles north of I-10, safe from Mobile Bay. Take a look at the pictures from earlier around Dolphin Island and down towards the coast. This is where we have issues with surge and flooding. Much closer, much closer to the water there, and you can see the overwash and the waves crashing around the area. As far as inland areas concerned, the big threat right now is wind damage. We've got power out just about everywhere. There is no power on. But again, just scanning the horizon here along Interstate 65 just north of Mobile, we don't see any major structural damage, any windows blown out. Our sign here is hanging on pretty good. And that's usually a good measurement of how strong these winds are and how the damage is going. And again, so far, no transformers have been blown. We've been following these transformers all morning, and it just takes one of those wires, one of those small little thin wires to decouple, and then there's this loud boom and explosion and like a big green flash. And fortunately right now, we're not seeing that. Heather and Marshall?